감사합니다.
It's appropriate that they're discussing good restaurants on Twitter. After all, we are Twitter writing. Now let's tackle each and one of these sentences and see how we could translate into different expressions. The first sentence says, 저는 지금 종로에 외국인 친구와 함께 있습니다. Now, I told you a couple weeks back, maybe a couple lessons back, that 외국인 친구, we like to use the word foreigner a lot in Korea, but I think, personally, this is totally my personal taste, that it's a little bit offensive when you use the word foreigner. It just kind of has a negative connotation when you call someone foreign, because it just literally means unfamiliar, right? So I have a different recommendation. How about using friend from abroad instead? Friend from abroad. 멀리서 온 친구, 다른 나라에서 온 친구를 보고는 friend from abroad라고도 할 수 있어요. 그래서 외국인 친구를 보고 friend from abroad라고 사용하실 수도 있습니다. And 종로 is of course a Korean word, so I literally translated into 종로. I'm in 종로 with a friend from abroad, right now. Right now, 지금 right now죠. One more time. I'm in 종로 with a friend from abroad right now. How do we continue on to the next sentence? 종로에 있는 맛집을 추천 좀 해주세요. Now, of course, 맛집, we went over several times. It's good restaurant. And we learned the verb, right? 추천해주다, to make a recommendation. So, since you're utilizing this on Twitter and you're asking the question via Twitter, you could say something like, could someone, because you're not specifically talking to one person, but it's a tweet, so many people can see it, even though you are talking to me technically in the picture. You can say, could someone please recommend, 추천, a good restaurant. 어디에 있는? 종로에 있는. So you could just say in 종로, or because you're already talking about 종로 in the context, you can refer to as in the area, because we've already established that we're talking about 종로. So altogether you could ask, could someone please recommend a good restaurant in the area? And he continues on, 트위터의 힘을 좀 빌리고 싶습니다. Because he's talking on Twitter, he wants to take advantages of the Twitter's pros. We already talked about this a couple weeks back as well, so I'm sure you have a couple words already rolling in your mind. 자, 근데 좀 빌리고 싶다는 표현이 한국말로는 참 적절한데 영어로 번역했을 때는 it literally translates to borrow, and that sounds very odd and very awkward. So here's my recommendation instead. I'd love to take advantage of Twitter's strength here. Twitter's strength. 트위터의 장점을 여기서 좀 사용하고 싶습니다. 이런 뜻이죠. I'd love to take advantage of Twitter's strength here. Because to borrow sounds really awkward in this context. That's my recommendation. And how do we continue on? 사찰 음식은 어떠세요? She recommends food from the temple. So you could just ask, how about temple food? That's the easiest way to ask. But I have a different recommendation as well. How does temple food sound? 사찰 음식은 어떠세요? How does temple food sound? And it means the same thing as how about temple food. It means the exact same thing. 뭔가 recommendation을 하면 you're voicing your opinion, right? So you're asking, well, how does it sound? How does my recommendation sound? How does temple food sound? So remember that phrase because we might use this in the future. And next sentence says, 와, 정말 색다른데요. He likes the idea. And 우와, literally can translate to many expressions. But how about wow? Wow, great. And we learned the word unconventional today, right? Unconventional. So you could just say, oh, that's unconventional. That's very unconventional. Or you could specifically refer to as a recommendation because she made the recommendation. So you can refer to specifically, that's an unconventional recommendation. Wow, that's an unconventional recommendation. So he likes the idea. Let's move on. And so he continues on. 저와 친구는 고기보다 채소를 더 좋아합니다. What an odd man. I have never met a man that likes vegetables more than meat. But props and kudos to him. Now, we learned the word green earlier, right? My friend and I, 친구와 저는, yeah, I like to put the friend first, so I'm going to do my friend and I, 좋아합니다. How about enjoy? Because if you like a certain food, you can enjoy it as well, right? My friend and I enjoy what? 채소는 greens라고 할 수 있다고 했죠. Enjoy greens. 뭐보다? More than. 고기는 영어로 meat. Meat 또는 소고기는 beef. We use beef a lot interchangeably, but how about meat? Because there's no specific. Now there's a huge blank space here because I want to introduce a different expression. 뭐 딱 좋네요. 이런 말이 앞에 들어가도 괜찮잖아요. So here's one expression that I want you to take away from this context. That works out perfectly. 뭔가 딱 좋네요. 그거 참 알맞네요. That works out perfectly. Now, I didn't leave space for because, but you need because to continue on the sentence. That works out perfectly. 딱 좋네요. 왜냐면 제 친구와 저는 고기보다 채소를 더 좋아하니까. So altogether, that works out perfectly because my friend and I enjoy greens more than meat. More than meat. 이렇게 사용하실 수도 있습니다. And he continues on.